at the same place as the exhibition, but there were some problems. I think we were too radical for the shopping arcade. The exhibition we'll be running, I think, is running until the 27th. Until the 27th, yeah. 27th September. So if people haven't seen the exhibition, they're welcome to see it. I'm sure David will tell people more about it. My name is Adam Johannes. I'm from Cardiff Stop the War Coalition. I'll be chairing the meeting. People don't know we were launched in 2001 to campaign not only against the war, but the consequences of the war, which was both the rise of racism and Islamophobia and attack on civil liberties. I think this will be a theme in this meeting tonight. Particularly Hamja will be talking about one of the consequences of the war on terror was a growth of prisoners, people unjustly imprisoned, and also erosion, the treatment of the entire community in Britain by our government as a suspect community. So I think this will be some of the stuff we should talk. So I'd like to introduce our two speakers. I think, should I introduce you both at once or should I introduce you all? Okay. Okay, Ola will be speaking first. She's a Palestinian campaigner. She's been very active in a lot of causes. I'm sure she'll tell you more about herself. She lives in Cardiff. And Hamja, he's here representing a campaign called the Free Talha Ahsan campaign, which is his brother who was in prison for 6 years without trial before being extradited to solitary confinement at a maximum security prison in America. And he'll tell you a lot more about the campaign, but he's been travelling to many different cities, speaking and campaigning intrepidly on behalf of his brother for freedom, which looks very close. And the poetry book that his brother wrote in prison, which he may be reading, is here. And this is actually Hamja's second visit to Cardiff. He likes it so much. He decided to come back. And his brother's campaign has had many high-profile supporters, ranging from Noam Chomsky to more locally Leanne Wood, leader of Plaid Cymru. So I think Ola's going to speak first, so we'll take it away.
Hi, as he said, my name's Ola Ashi. I'm from Cardiff, born and bred in Penarth. So yeah, I'll just tell you just a bit about myself, just so that it could work nicely into what I'm about to say. So I'm 23 and I graduated from psychology from Cardiff Uni. So yeah, I've sort of just been brought up around here, seeing how Cardiff was before and how it is now. Where I used to walk in town looking for my mum. She'd be the only person in the headscarf. Now, I'd walk and it's too many people, which is a nice development, which means that, you know, we're getting more multicultural. So I'm one of those. Oh, sorry, he mentioned that I'm a Palestinian activist. I'm originally from Gaza, so my parents are from Gaza, and I have recently been the spokesperson for the Palestinian Forum in Britain. So I've been speaking at the protests in London. And we've organised some conferences before, and so activism and campaigning, like Adam, is in my blood. So yeah, just a bit about, I'm going to talk about Islamophobia. I'm one of those people who, I didn't believe in Islamophobia. I just thought it was just one of those concepts that, to be honest, people are just, they want something to victimise themselves by, and so they just put in this name of Islamophobia. Whenever my friends just talk about it, I'm like, come on, just toughen up and get over it. There's nothing called Islamophobia. Until I worked in a hospital in the Valleys. I don't know if some of you might know, a Castle Clinic. It's a mental hospital for offenders. So yeah, I worked there, and it was me and 2 other girls who were sent from uni on my placement year. And I only realised that actually something isn't right. Something's not normal. When one of my colleagues, somebody who, I think she was a bit older than me, she complained to my supervisor that I was being bullied by one of the doctors, and I didn't even realise I was being bullied. So she had watched an interaction with us in the staff room, and I was so used to people acting in this way, I didn't even understand it to be the concept of bullying or somebody being Islamophobic. So this doctor, he was supposed to be the one that was in charge of looking after making sure that everything's going fine.
Sorry. Take one Williams.
Sorry?
Take one Williams.
Oh, no. No, second's a good one.
It's cool. Thank God.
I don't think this doctor's there anymore. So it was, he was a lovely man, but he'd always attacked me with very, very personal and very attacking questions, and it'd always be attacking the way I think, the way I dress, what I believe. So, for example, one time, him and another doctor, when I was just so used to this, I just thought this was the norm, this is how things are. So, yeah, he was telling me about a brothel, and he was trying to justify how brothels and prostitution are actually liberating for women. I was saying, you're the only person I've met in my life who thinks it's liberating for women. And they were saying, well, you know, if my fiancé or a girlfriend would like to, you know, work in a brothel and she feels that it liberates her, then I'd allow her. And I'm like, how on earth can you think like this? This is just bizarre. And so they kept attacking me with all these questions and ideas. This is just one example. And then they went and told the two girls that I came and worked with from Cardiff University. They were students as well, and they told them, you know, if Ola asks you tonight if we're all going to the brothel, tell her we are, because they had told me, oh, you know, we're going to the brothel. Would you like to come along? Like it's yeah. And to me, I was just like, I was so used to this this sort of behaviour that I'd learned to deal with it, and I didn't interpret it as bullying. I didn't interpret it as Islamophobia. So when I told them, they said no. You know, I said, this just happened. And they said, yeah, he just came and told us. This is, you know, it's supposed to be our superior. He came and told us if you asked for us to say this. And then my supervisor told me that somebody's complained because I'm being bullied. And then I started thinking, actually, I think the concept of Islamophobia might actually be true. It might actually be present. It's this underlying behaviour in people. It's almost as if we have this very superficial layer on top, and as soon as you don't even need to peel the layer back, you just need to peek behind it, and you see all these like poisonous attitudes and poisonous behaviours that lie just behind it. And the reason I didn't believe in Islamophobia is because I realised that I've had these Islamophobic attacks throughout my whole life. When I was in school, people would ask me if my pin had a bomb in it, if I was going to blow them up. I just thought it was normal that when I'd go jogging on the street, I'd have people shouting out BMP to me, or go back home, or that I wouldn't like to stay out late at night because I'm scared that somebody might come and do something because I'm a Muslim. And I just thought that, you know, each person has their struggles and this is mine. Now I know it's Islamophobia. Now I know it's a serious problem that needs to be addressed and it needs to be dealt with. So yeah, I'm now somebody who believes in Islamophobia. But I'm losing my train of thought here. I can go on with stories forever and ever and ever. I could put you all to sleep with the stories. But then when I started to think about it deeply, I realised that what's happening is my religion's being hijacked. My religion's being used as a scapegoat. Whether we use the word Muslim, or whether we use the word, whether we replace Muslims with black people, whether we replace Muslims with Jews, it's happened to everybody in the past, and now it's the turn of my religion. And it really frustrates me, and it really angers me, because you see such fundamental concepts in Islam, like jihad. If I ask any of you now what you think jihad means, most of you will think it means a holy war, to wage a holy war, or to fight against people. But the concept of jihad, and I often say this to people, even when I'm talking to my non-Muslim friends, like you need to like have this jihad of the self. It means it's a struggle. So the word, it's a fundamental concept in Islam. So the struggle of this, the jihad in nafs, the struggle of the self. Jihad can also be this, any concept that you apply a struggle to. That's where the word jihad comes from. So there are fundamental concepts in my religion that are being taken and being completely hijacked to almost as if in a bid to justify the actions of the capitalist society, of those that are in power, to justify the endless wars that they're doing, to justify the keeping us in our place. I was listening to a lecture recently about the minorities and how the minorities have an underlying place in society. You're a minority, you should remain here. You're a minority. They were criticising it. You're a minority. You shouldn't really have a say in politics. You shouldn't really have a say in foreign policy because you're a minority. You shouldn't have a voice. So we've just been so used to that, and I think it's something that as the Muslim community we have to start breaking against. That actually this minority victimized mentality needs to break away. I was speaking about something, but I went to something else, and I'm trying to remember what I was speaking about before. If anybody wants to help me, you're more than welcome to. I sent Adam. I speak a lot, so I could just keep going. Yeah, so the hijacking of my religion. And recently, as you probably all know, I didn't want to mention it, but I thought it'll just be another example of ISIS. ISIS. I don't know where the word ISIS even came from. There's the Arabic word. They didn't feel the need to translate the word Al-Qaeda because it means principles, and that doesn't sound as interesting. It doesn't really smear any Islamic concept by constantly referring to the principles in Afghanistan, the principles in Pakistan. But it just sounds a bit more fun. It's just another Islamic concept that, well, if we get the masses, including Muslims, to say, oh no, we don't believe in the Islamic State, where the word Islamic State has now become synonymous with a terrorist organisation that does God knows what, who anybody with any humanity would find absolutely atrocious. So it's these concepts. So for example, but now it just so happens to come out just as the revolutions in the Muslim Arab world have emerged, just as the Muslim Brotherhood have attempted to get into power in many countries, i.e. running countries under the Islamic law, i.e. making them Islamic states. So it all just happens to be a bit coincidental, to say the least. So that's another concept, the Islamic State, where like I said, Muslims, if you say the Islamic State, oh no, of course we don't believe in that. The simple person who doesn't know in depth about their religion enough to tell you that these are two completely different things. They're very how do I say it? Just using this word does not mean that it becomes this concept. We need to go back and separate these two words. So Islamophobia has become a problem I feel, in the sense that not only is it smearing and ruining the concepts of Islam amongst non-Muslims, but it's also amongst Muslims themselves, where many people don't understand enough to be able to stand up and say, no, this is wrong, this is against Islam because X, Y, Z, and all that we see, all that we get is, and all that we try and do is defend ourselves from the constant negative backbiting, if you want to call it, not backbiting, there's another word for it. When you talk about somebody in a negative way, the rumours that you constantly hear in the news, and all we're doing is defending ourselves instead of actually stopping and saying...
It's slander.
Slander, that's the word, slander. Thank you very much. Exactly what I was thinking of. Alongside something more. So yeah, so there's this simplifying of Islam down to very misunderstood, misdefined concepts to scare the majority, the masses, because obviously most people are scared of they're afraid of the unknown, and to them Islam is the unknown. I'll give you another example. Actually, this happened twice in the past 2 weeks. I was on a plane, and I was sitting by a man who was chatting a bit too much, just a bit too much on the plane. I'm not going to go into it because it's being videoed, but he was chatting a bit too much on the plane. And one of the questions, I don't know if you've noticed, but my accent it's got no hint of any other accent. It's purely British. So, you know, the general consensus would be that I'm from Britain. But because I wear the headscarf, so it creates a bubble that one can't pierce. So I'm speaking to the man on the plane. He asks me, so, you know, what brings you to London? I'm like, well, the plane lands in London, so hence I'm going to London. And he's like, oh, so, you know, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Cardiff. He says, oh, okay. And he asked me another question, and he goes, so, how long have you been... No, what was his question? Not how long have you been. Yeah, I think it was something like, so how long have you been in the UK for? Something like that. And I was like, I was born here. He was like, oh. I was like, yeah, I'm from Cardiff. He's like, oh, so no, how long have you been in the UK for? I'm like, I was born here. You know? And I was thinking, can't he realise from my accent that it's just totally neutral? There's no additions. And I thought, oh, bless him, you know, maybe he's just an older man who's not used to meeting somebody with a headscarf on. And then I went to a meeting in work, and there's a lady that I had just met, and she's really lovely and everything. And it just shows how I'm just giving an idea of how there is this unconscious Islamophobic sentiment just in the back of everybody's mind. Not everybody's, many people's minds. So I was telling her I might be studying I was going to study my master's, and I'm not going to do it anymore. She's like, oh, so how much are they charging you now? I was like, oh, it's not too much. It's just, you know, the normal price of a master's. And she's like, no, because I know they overcharge you. And I'm like, no, they just charge you. And I was with two other people as well. One of them was my professor. I was like, no, they just charge the normal price. She was like, no, because they really overcharge international students. I'm like, I'm from Cardiff. This is the second time it's happened in 2 weeks. I was like, I'm from Cardiff. I'm British. And I hate having to say, I'm British, I'm from Cardiff. I've got a British passport. Like it was, and I was like what must have given that impression that I'm not from the UK, other than the fact that I'm wearing a headscarf, that made everything that I said, and the way I said it, and everything that I was saying before, it just completely went over their heads, because I'm wearing a headscarf, so it automatically means that I'm not British. And this other concept of Islam being Islam, and then there's everything else. So it's the other. You can't have a British Muslim. You can't have Islam in Britain. Thanks for the time. I will try and stick to it. Yeah, you can't have Islam in Britain. They're two things that don't mix. I feel is another main aspect of Islamophobia that's becoming more and more evident nowadays, in that, for example, when anything happens abroad, the first thing we as Muslims have to do, we have to put our hands up and say, you know, these are not from us, we are not like this. Whereas you have to step back and think, well, of course we're not like this. I'm born in Britain. Everything I know is from Britain. My culture is British. I'm just a Muslim. I'm a British Muslim. Of course I'm not like this, the same way that you wouldn't need to justify that you are not like ISIS, or that you do not believe in their ideas, should, in essence, be the same way that I, or any other Muslim, would need or not need to act. So this constant justification and defending that, you know, we're peaceful people, you know, trust me, really we are. Recently there was, I think wasn't recently, about 6 months ago, something happened, I can't remember what it was, and everybody over Facebook was like, as a Muslim, I condemn this is not part of my religion. And I'm like, why are you going down this apologetic route? Of course it's not part of your religion. That's why you haven't done it. You haven't, if it was part of it, you would have done it a long time ago, and you still continue to do it. So the fact that you haven't done it, the fact that you're living, you haven't done anything to your neighbour, or their cat, or you haven't practiced beheading on their cat or whatever, should mean that you're not like this. So I don't know if I have time, but I was gonna mention, you know, what kind of things like you think would help us move to the next stage. Because I don't like, everybody who knows me knows that I'm not a negative person. So I always like to come out with constructive stuff. So like now that we've, I haven't spoken about like 99% of what I was going to speak about. Oh, do you know, actually there is one point that I quite like. So I'm just going to say it really quickly, really quickly. And it's, I feel that this, if you look at a lot of countries that do have strong Islamophobia, a lot of the time it tends to be the very countries that have confusions with definitions of their own selves. So nowadays there's always stuff about what does it mean to be British, and it's also, you see it in the general public's attitude towards immigrants, or and the racism towards those. You know, they're coming over, so you know we have to stop immigration so that can stop the racism. Well, that's not really the way it works. If you look in some places in New Zealand, some Muslims don't even live there, but they're very, you know, Islamophobic. They're very racist. In Japan, there are very few Jews who live there, yet they're very anti-Semitic. So this being scared, not knowing. Like if we take it down, I'm going to talk about psychology now. If we take it down to our own selves, when we're unsure of who we are, we tend to project it upon other people in negative ways by bringing down the people in front of us, just that we can feel a bit more satisfied in who we define, but we haven't really defined ourselves because we don't know who we are, but who we think we are. So I think that if we take it onto a bigger level, onto a country level, and we actually look at the countries that do have this very strong Islamophobic these very strong Islamophobic tendencies, they also tend to have very strong racist attitudes or homophobic attitudes, or always scared of the other, that may further shape their own definition of who they are. So I think for me, one thing that has got me thinking recently is, what does it mean to be British? And how does this concept of Islam shape this meaning to be British? Then I took it back one step. I promise I will finish in like 1.5 minutes. And then I took it back a bit further, and I thought, well, the same way that in the Middle East, the people in power, very rarely do they actually represent the people that they're governing. I had an idea of actually the people, like the people in power in Britain, just sort of represent a wider, I touched upon earlier, a wider network of capitalists and of power-hungry people at the top who completely exploit the resource-rich countries and the working class. And actually, Islam is such a wide-reaching religion with so many people in it that at the moment, it's the concept of Islam and it's the concept of possibly something shaking the foundations of the capitalist society and getting people to re-question the way wealth is distributed, the way that the world currently works, and that there's a large group of people, over 1 billion, many people forget that we're about 1/6 of the world, we might even be a bit more, but about 1/6 of the world who actually look at this and think, well, you know, if people really truly look at Islam, the whole capitalist ideology is completely against it. So one way to stop possibly Muslims or just the other coming and shaking our power and shaking what we have in our hand is by victimising them and getting people from inside them and from outside them to squash them before they even have a voice. Does that make sense? I don't know if my thoughts are coherent. But yeah, that's pretty much me done with 50% of what I said. So yeah, Islamophobia. And what do we do about it now? How do we change it? And I just think it's amazing that just things like this, I really think they're great. And it kind of, even though there's a small number of us, I feel like it restores one's faith in humanity when you see such a diverse and mixed group of people, most of whom aren't Muslim or brown. So it's nice.
Yeah, our children. So Jasmine, I'm from Essex. Jasmine's born in Wales, but she goes to Road Park School, which is a very mixed school, and I chose that school specifically because it was mixed. And I don't think you see that in the school, do you?
There we are. that answers it.
Yeah, I mean, Jasmine's group of friends are like more over the place and Western born in Cardiff. You know what I mean?
That's really reassuring to hear. Yeah, I know Road Park has always been one of the multicultural ones. I was just unfortunate to always go to the ones where I was considered brown. So just from how,
But Road Park's a really good school, and I think like changing attitudes will come with the kids. I think it will come. And yeah. I know it seems a bit hard at the moment, not to be terrible because of all the stuff going on, but changing attitudes are happening more, I reckon, in Cardiff, and people are more open in Cardiff, definitely. And like, if I go back down to Essex, and then things are a bit more backwards, I don't know what happened, IQ level drops or something, that's really important to my home, like my home and everything, but Wales is a much nicer place than Cardiff, is a wonderfully multicultural place, I think, compared to a lot of other places.
It's nice that you say that, especially with like knowing that you've seen a contrast, like at a different city and you compared it.
Yeah, I mean, I found Essex